Hello everyone, Mrs. Leader here. This is going to be a video to explain how a bill becomes a law. It's just a simple 50-step process. Honestly, I haven't counted the processes. 50 might be a little bit of an overstatement, but as you will see, it is a pretty long, complicated process. And I've actually cut out some of the steps in this PowerPoint, so just know that it is slightly more complicated than I'm making it out to be right now, okay? First, what we're going to do is we're going to follow a fictional law through the process to kind of demonstrate how this works. Okay, so this law is going to be a law where the Senate, one senator is proposing a law to say that pizza should be now considered the national food of the United States. Okay. So what's going to happen is the senator is going to stand up and say, I want pizza to be the national food of the United States. He's going to have some staffers write up the language, and he's going to give it to a committee. Okay? If he really wants wide support, he will find someone from a different political party to co-sponsor that bill with him. Okay, so it's going to go to committee. Okay, so specifically if it's going to be about a national food, it's probably going to go to the Committee on Agriculture. But sometimes that depends. Okay, but it would go to the committee that is about that specific topic. Okay, once it's in committee, then the committee is going to basically talk about it. They're going to say, yeah, I think pizza's amazing. Or somebody else is going to be like, no, pizza can't be our national food because it's Italian food. We should really have a ham sandwich as our national food. Okay, and they're going to debate that. They might have people come in and testify. So maybe the owner of Papa John's is going to come in and say his mind about why he thinks pizza should be the national food. And then the owner of Burger King might come in and talk about why it should be the hamburger instead of pizza. And they'll hear all this testimony and they're going to gather a lot of information. Most of that information is going to be done by the staffers that work for the senators. Okay. So then they're going to sit down and they're going to do something called markup. And basically what markup is after the hearing is over, after they've gathered all this data, then they're going to meet for a markup session. So they're going to say, okay, so right now in the bill, it says that pizza is the national food, but I think we should change it to pizza and hamburgers. Okay. Or they might say, I think it should only be this for 30 days, or they're gonna make changes. They're gonna go through it section by section. They're gonna look at the wording, see if there's any loopholes, and make changes in markup. Okay. Then it will get voted out of committee after it's been marked up. Okay, and it will go out to the Senate. Okay. So now on the Senate floor, there will be more debate, okay? Because remember, before in the committee, it was just a committee of, say, 10 senators, okay? Now this is going to be all 100 senators. And so then all 100 senators are going to be able to have their ability to make their voices heard about whether or not pizza should be the national food of the United States, okay? They're going to debate, they're going to talk about, well, I think there should be an amendment on there that gives spending to the state of Ohio for propping up the auto industry. Okay. Now it has nothing to do with pizza, but we're going to talk about how those things happen in a little bit. Okay. But they're going to talk all about that. Okay. Maybe amendments, whether or not it should be open or closed, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So if it's open rule, then we get something called writers. Okay, so what is a writer, you ask? Well, a writer is tacking things on a bill that have nothing to do with that bill. Okay, so for instance, if for this pizza bill somebody said, okay, I'm going to tack on like $500 million in military spending, or I'm going to tack on $10 million to Ohio that it's going to go to the auto industry or something like that. Okay. They're going to tack it on there because they're like, well, everybody loves pizza, so this is definitely going to pass. So, you know, and it would be unpopular to vote against pizza. So therefore, this is how I'm going to get my money in there. Okay. This happens a lot. Okay. And then sometimes there are like reasons like a president might veto a law, and then everybody's going to go, what? President Trump doesn't like pizza? What's wrong with him? But he might have actually vetoed the law because he's like, well, I didn't think that Ohio needed their spending for the auto industry. Okay. So sometimes bills actually get vetoed because of these writers. It's actually a way to, if you wanted to tank a bill and make sure it got vetoed, you could tack a writer on there that you knew that the president would veto. Okay. So now that everybody's debated on the Senate floor, it's going to be time to vote on it, okay? A majority of the members of the Senate have to be present for there to be a vote, okay? So you couldn't do something underhanded like, say, only have 3 senators there, and then all 3 of them vote, and they're like, yep, it passed. So they can't do that, okay? The majority of, so at least 51 members of the Senate have to be there for a vote, okay? It doesn't have to be all 100 because occasionally there will be times when senators can't be there. Okay. And then they will vote. Okay. Yay or nay. So let's say in this instance it passes and it goes over to the House of Representatives. Okay. So first it goes to the Rules Committee because all bills have to go to the Rules Committee in the House. And the Rules Committee might say, I hate this. I'm going to not leave it, let it leave committee, which is possible. But let's say in this instance they're like, yep, I love pizza too. Let's go ahead and vote this out of committee. But they might make a change and say, I think it should be pizza and hamburgers. Okay? So if that happens, they have to go to conference committee. But let's say for the sake of argument, they didn't change anything. They passed the exact same law. Okay? The exact same bill, I should say. Then it goes to the president. Okay? If the president signs it, boom, it's law. Okay? If he vetoes it, then it does not. Okay, then it becomes nothing. It becomes a dead bill. But, and the president actually has another option. Okay, so if he doesn't want to veto it in, but he also doesn't want to, or he doesn't want to veto it, but he also doesn't want to sign it, he can actually just do nothing for 10 days. And if Congress is in session, it will just become law without the president's signature. Okay. This is in there to prevent the president from just not doing anything. Okay. So they will do this on purpose. If, but if for some reason the Congress goes out of session in those 10 days, then it will actually get vetoed. And this is called a pocket veto. So this means that essentially also if the president doesn't want to actually sign something to veto it, I'm sorry, if the president doesn't want to actually veto something, then he might do it this way. So he can say, well, I didn't veto it, but it also didn't become law. Okay. All very complicated, I know. But yeah, so pocket vetoes usually happens if the president just doesn't want it to go on record that he vetoed it, but he doesn't want it to happen. Vetoes can be, you can override a veto, okay? And the way that that's done is with a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So that is a very high margin to hit. And as you can imagine, it does not happen very often, okay? Because it's really hard to get that 2/3, okay? If they don't get it, the bill is dead, the end, okay? Most recently, the last veto override was September 23rd of 2016 when President Obama vetoed the Justice Against the Sponsors of Terrorism Act. Now, on its face, you might be thinking, why would he possibly veto that? It seems, you know, the law was basically going to make it so you could sue the government of another country, okay? And people were like, I don't understand how you could be against that. Well, you know, he realized that then it would leave our government open to lawsuits from other countries. And so he was trying to protect us. He vetoed it, but they overrode him. Sorry. Barriers for a bill. So as you can see, as little things that I've mentioned throughout, there are a lot of ways that bills can die. Okay, the Speaker of the House can basically just decide that they're not going to talk about it, and then the bill will die. The committees can decide to either not talk about it, which is called pigeonholing, or they can just vote it down in committee. The president can veto it. And just if it's not popular for you politically, people just won't even go there. Okay, so there's just so many barriers that bills have to get over to get passed. Um, So the filibuster is something real quick that factors into all of this, but this only is in the Senate, okay? So a filibuster basically is talking a bill to death, okay? And the reason why the Senate is the only house that can do this is because the House of Representatives has limits on the amount of time that House members can talk, whereas the Senate has no limits. So essentially, if you wanted to delay a vote or make a vote not happen, you could just stand there and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and nobody could tell you otherwise, okay? Eventually, they came up with a process for ending a filibuster. It's called cloture. And it's a little bit of a process. There's different things that have to be filed, but essentially you need a 2/3 vote, which would be 60 people, okay? 60 people in the Senate have to vote to end the filibuster, and that is called cloture, okay? Um, Now, there have been some times where cloture has been removed, but essentially right now for laws, for legislative reasons, it's still there, okay? It the filibuster really hadn't been used for a long time. But as you can see in the infographic there, it actually like went way up during President Obama's term, mostly because of party politics, and the just the president and Congress didn't have a good working relationship. Also, sometimes senators will do that because it looks good for them. They get a lot of TV coverage when they filibuster. Um, Senator Rand Paul from, not Rand Paul, Rand Paul from Kentucky is really big on filibustering. He likes to do that. So, though that is essentially how a bill becomes a law, if you have any questions about this whatsoever, please reach out to your government teacher.